Hey y'all, hi. Okay, here is a question I've been pondering. Is there a way to dress that is fairly polished, like chic, put together, formal enough for most workplaces and semi-formal social situations, and that is also really, really unrestrictive and fluid and supports like a spry, athletic, almost dancerly sensory experience? Or if you are not spry, dancerly, or athletic, just a really, really comfortable daily experience of being in your clothes. I've been doing some thinking and some research, and the answer, my friends, is yes. There are two ways that I'm going to share with you today, and learning about them and musing on them, it has really deepened my overall thinking about the use value of fashion, the pressures that it puts on us, and the way that we can use fashion to maybe move the needle on our own capacities and our own freedom as we live each day in our clothes. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. I forgot to say in the intro, I'll link my book down below. It's a book of poetry. Click through if you're interested. Subscribe if you like this. Okay, let's go. So two styles that I think are the answer to this query. One is more on the informal side, like heavier on the activewear and potentially not as formal. And one is the opposite, easier to make formal with a stronger dose of polish than most activewear. And the first style for your consideration is pulled directly out of my personal history, which is a surprise to me when I started thinking about this. I was like, oh yeah. Here's the background. So for a decade spanning my 20s and my 30s, my main job was that I made tango clothes by hand, clothes for dancers of Argentine social tango. And I sold them to tango dancers online and in person at tango festivals. The clothes that I designed and made and sold were very fancy. They were essentially evening wear for dancing tango at events and at night. But when I got dressed in my capacity as a vendor of those clothes, which often crossed over with practicing tango, sometimes teaching tango, often just dancing tango, like during the day at the festival as part of the vending day, it was like I had to look put together, polished, somewhat upscale in my capacity as the designer and seller of these clothes. It had to be elegant, and I wanted to telegraph fashion so that people would be confident in my work. But it also had to be a kind of activewear, or at the very least a kind of dancewear. And I really, really wanted to be comfortable because those were some long, truly grueling work days. The wardrobe that I came up with at that time in my life was, it turns out, kind of an answer to the question of this video. This is the vision. It's kind of a sculptural, unfussy version of activewear that is nice enough to translate to like a fancy dinner. That's sort of the standard of the level of niceness. Activewear as we know it, but make the lines really clean, make some of the lines interesting, with some draping, some creativity, and in some cases, a lot of drama. Like in some cases, make the lines very dramatic. I think knitwear can also be a part of this. It's like easy to make knitwear a part of this, which I love. Like this look can translate easily into cold weather. It almost particularly suits cold weather with some sculptural knitwear, especially if there's a balletic bent. In my life, when this was my style most days, it was like more dance teacher vibes, less worky vibes, less like actual worky vibes. But I think that there are ways to make it more appropriate for more conventional workplaces. Like I would often use leggings as the base of a look in those days, but you could replace leggings with other pants, trousers, jogger pants, those pants that look like trousers and jogger pants, but are actually made out of really stretchy fabric so that you look a bit more polished, but you still feel really, really comfortable. And that translates to the tenor of your poise. I also think that with this style, there are appealing ways to personalize it through accessories and also to scale it for the setting. So someone wearing an outfit that fits into this style, I don't know, we can call it like sculptural, minimal, sophisticated dance baddie. Someone wearing an outfit like this in all black with black lug-soled Chelsea boots and really polished hair like a slicked back bun is going to telegraph more fashion vibes. Someone wearing the same thing, but with like flat-soled, knee-high, lace-up, burgundy leather boots and long tangled hair is going to be serving more like evolved hippie. Like maybe she LARPs on the weekends, you know? And someone in the exact same outfit, but with, I don't know, like a bunch of tattoos, iridescent makeup, that person's going to be giving more of an alt, artistic, edgy vibe. And then accessories to polish it up for work, the same outfit with some demure Chelsea boots and like a laptop bag and a binder. You know, that look probably wouldn't be out of place in an office. And I think jewelry can also really matter. So dainty, fine jewelry makes it a bit more polished, but for day, chunky statement earrings can immediately turn this into something that would work for a nice dinner. Also, switching whatever shoes you're wearing for very high heels immediately recontextualizes this outfit as it does for many outfits. I think the images will probably do a better job of communicating what I mean when I talk about this style than I can do in words. I'll also put some links down below of shops that might work for this style, or even links to specific garments that can work. Like, where would you find it if you wanted to add a few key pieces to your wardrobe to move it in this direction? But it's not normal activewear. I can't stress that enough. It's not like those yoga clothes that are trying to be edgy or trying to be a little bit different, but you can just tell that they are just yoga clothes. The idea here is to conceive of outfits that if someone saw you wearing them, they would be like, wow, you look nice. Like, you look dressed up. You look like someone who made a bit of an effort, or you look like somebody who usually does make a bit of an effort. But the reality also is that you could just drop into the splits. I mean, if you can do the splits, in theory, you could just drop into the splits, or you could, get on the floor and start stretching out your hamstrings. And for you to be doing that wouldn't look out of sync with your attire. Like, very well dressed, but ready to move. So that is style number one. Style number two, in response to the prompt, I want to talk about Marimekko, lagenlook, and Yohji Yamamoto. So Marimekko is a textiles, clothing, and home furnishings brand that was founded in 1951 in Finland. And most people associate the Marimekko name with the bold prints for which they are so famous, but to me, that is not the most interesting thing about Marimekko. Armi Raitia, who is one of the founders of Marimekko, designed these dresses in the 50s that were super loose and essentially a rejection of form-fitting, binding clothing for women. And not just in the way of the classic 60s sheath dress. I mean, there were a lot of clothes in the 50s and 60s that were kind of a pivot from what had been popular before. But that classic 60s sheath dress is really short. So it's kind of like trading one kind of binding for another, because it's not quite as fitted, but you also can't, bend over without everything falling out. The Marimekko dresses of the 50s and 60s were mostly loose and long, smock-like, you could say. Inspired somewhat, I believe, or I've seen written, by simple peasant dresses in Finland, but made very fashion by the prints and the cuts and the way that they were styled and marketed to the world. And they were embraced especially by women in college at the time. I saw this quote when I was reading about it. The Marimekko frocks, referred to at the time as liberating both body and mind, proved a hit with students at Radcliffe College, the former Harvard University all-women's college. Hundreds of Radcliffe girls took the dresses home to their mothers, said fashion editor Eugenia Shepard at the time. She also described the label as a uniform for intellectuals, adding that Marimekko is for women whose way of wearing clothes is to forget what they have on. And of course, I'll link the source material, right? I'll link the article from which I took that quote. However, of course, let us not forget that there are a lot of ways of wearing clothing as an intellectual person. And let us not make the mistake of oversimplifying and thinking that this means that it is not intellectual for a woman or for anyone to wear form-fitting clothes. This is just one part of the history of one style that we're looking at. And at the time, it was radical and did advance and make more nuanced some people's thinking about the relationship between silhouettes and power. Jackie Kennedy wore some of these dresses. Georgia O'Keeffe wore them. There was a social and political momentum to the silhouette, and I think a kind of hope that it would have a future of being elevated to the point of acceptance as a polished and potentially a professional look for women. Sort of a counterpoint to the translation of the men's suit onto the female female form, which had been, Coco Chanel's answer to the question of how to give a woman in the workplace professional power through the polish of clothing. Marimekko and other designers too, right? It came from multiple places. I just find the Marimekko dress to be a particularly good starting point. Marimekko was offering kind of the opposite of that formal suit solution, kind of like a break it all up, burn it all down answer to the question of what kind of clothing makes a person look like they are in charge. Instead of making a uniform for women that is the same thing that was formerly only accessible to men, these dresses say total freedom is power. So where did it go from there? Did this initiative evolve into a style that can pass as professional while also being artistic and unconstrained? I think it somewhat did, and it has joined forces along the way with some similar visions of other fashion designers like Yohji Yamamoto, a Japanese designer who has consistently produced layered, draped, often gender fluid outfits and garments which somewhat echo Japanese drawing techniques. Lagenlook is a German word that's been adopted by English speakers to loosely label this fashion style at large. And the word has actually been used in that way since the 60s. It saw a resurgence, though, in the 2010s, and it is currently a highly searchable shopping and image sourcing term, a very useful word that turns up everything from Marimekko and Yamamoto to designers like Rick Owens, Nicholas Kay, even brands like Free People and Eileen Fisher. But mostly it is less about shopping and more about styling. And we love that here at HannahLouisePoston.com. The styling it's about layering textures and colors on the body to make the body into sort of a textural version of a Rothko painting. And we love that. So it's like the fabrics make the body less figurative, but also more free to move. So body consciousness is decreased, body forwardness is decreased, but embodiment is increased. And in that way, the body is made both less central and more present in the daily experience of the wearer of the clothes. It's really quite brilliant. But is it formal? Can it be professional? I mean, that's the core question here. Does it really check both boxes? And here's what I think. Of course, not in every single context. Places where a closely tailored suit is required to the point of it being essentially a dress code. Places that have a truly conservative interpretation of professional dress, it might not work there. But in a lot of settings where that more conservative interpretation is what most people just default to, Lagenlook, I think, also could work. And for many people, does work. There's kind of this aesthetic and cultural sleight of hand. It feels like a sideways step away from the mainstream interpretation of formality. It's away from starched and towards relaxed, away from Western paradigms and towards a more Eastern influence, depending on who you are and on the look specifically, away from the mathematical and towards the artistic. It's a sideways step, but without going down a level of formality, especially if the formality of the Lagenlook look is supported by accessories like footwear, scarves, and jewelry. And it has the huge benefit of being very textiles forward, very texture forward. So you can use texture to signal formality without having to wear something more fitted or something more expected. So you can create a Lagenlook outfit using traditionally formal fabrics like silk and mohair, for example, and using traditionally more formal accessories like really beautiful, well-made shoes, jewelry, and you can end up, very obviously dressed up, expensive looking even, without conceding the silhouette. Maybe not the solution for everything, for everything in your life, but a surprisingly versatile and powerful style that somehow manages to be both high impact and inherently unforced. So, sculptural activewear and lagenlook, two potential ways to dress both formally and informally at the same time. I will put as many source links as I can in the description box down below, but one of the things that I really like about both of these styles is that they're both thriftable. Maybe the second more than the first, but if you really know what you're looking for, especially if you make like an inspiration mood board, so the idea is really locked in, and then you go looking at a thrift shop, I think you can find at least a couple of pieces to help support you in building like the sculptural minimal dance teacher wardrobe. And you can definitely find pieces like that if you expand your search to online secondhand shops. And the first step, of course, is to see what you can do creating looks that lean into one of these two styles using the clothes that are already in your wardrobe. So I like that they're thriftable. And there are other things I really like about both of these styles. They're both ageless and kind to an aging body in multiple ways, comfort being an important one of those ways. Both of these styles are gender fluid. Both of these styles are political in a way that has to do with women's bodies and non-binary bodies and differently abled bodies in the workplace. They make a kind of subtle alteration in the paradigms of professionalism and power. Essentially, they're both examples of ways that fashion can take emphasis off of the much belabored shape of the body and put emphasis back on to the much more important freedom and easefulness of the body. And I find that very appealing and frankly, still pretty radical. So that's it. It has been a pleasure going on this journey with you. I'm so glad that I decided to actually follow through and try to answer my own question about looking both unfettered and professional at the same time. I hope you enjoyed it. And I really hope you're taking extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.